have both.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino. Happy Monday, everybody. How are we doing? Of course, right when you go on the air, you start getting the text messages. All good. So much to talk about over the weekend. We've only got 60 minutes today because Grant and I are going to be back at 4 o'clock to get you ready for Monday Night Football. So if you want to get in on the action, now is the time to do it. As always, we're brought to you by Bennett's Restaurants. Go check out all 3 of their locations at bennettsrestaurants.com. You can learn more about their specials. Did you make it out for brunch this weekend? I sure hope you did. Amazing weekend for brunch. If you got out there early, it's been hot here in NorCal. And by the way, I just got to start off really quick. It's just a minor rido before we get to the meat and potatoes of what we're doing today.
Yeah.
What's up, Adam? How you doing, buddy? Bad blood in the books. Man, that women's title match, that was a botch fest, dude. We'll talk about that on Friday. Good wrestling segment last Friday with Adam. But just a quick rido, because we don't have time for the entire segment today. I enjoy Ryan Clark as an analyst. I think he does a really good job, but this dude's clothing choices are starting to take over his persona. It's hard to pay attention to his takes when he's wearing these different, I don't know what you call them, just really bright suits. I mean, maybe it's just not my taste. Maybe, as the kids call it, the drip these days. It's just not for me, but he's a hell of an analyst and won an Emmy. So I guess he gets to do his end zone dance whenever he wants. He can wear whatever the hell he wants. If he wants to wear Prince's blouse and make the rest of the guys pancakes on the panel, he is more than welcome to. So anyways, full weekend of Sacramento Kings action. And by full weekend, I mean Saturday. The Kings had Sunday off. We're going to talk about their scrimmage that they had on Saturday. We've got audio from Coach Brown, also from DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, and Coach Brown. You got to stay tuned for this. Coach Brown lit in to the team in front of the media after practice, after the scrimmage, when they huddled up, and rightfully so. And I actually think I have a pretty damn good example of why he did that. And it goes back to last season. In fact, it goes back to the last game the Kings played, which was the play-in game against the Pelicans, which ultimately they lost. And it wasn't exactly all on one person. I don't want to make it sound like that, because that would be crazy. The Kings were 0-6 to the Pelicans last year, but there were a couple of plays at the end of the third quarter when the Kings started to chip into the lead, just kind of started to chip into the lead, and you thought maybe they were going to make a run. It was going to be their last gasp, and there were 2 plays that just killed that. In the fourth quarter was done. Rest was history. Kings season was over. So I wonder, does it go back to that a little bit? But anyways, they got some good work in. They had yesterday off. There, back at the facility right now, wrapping up practice. We'll have some audio for that later on the Kings Court podcast, the shoot around. We'll get that to you. Nathan chiming in. We're talking wrestling. Is wrestling going to jump the day? Rachel Rodriguez botched her spot. Yeah, she did, right? She put Liv over the top of Nia. Yeah, that was interesting. It was a botch fest, man. Nia Jax, she used to be a really dangerous woman in the ring. She was. It was her reputation, a quote-unquote dangerous worker. And you could tell how she's been way more safe as of late, even with the power bomb to Rhea Ripley. It was super soft onto the stairs, but then not Rhea Ripley, to Bailey. But then she just tosses Bailey against the guardrail. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyways, let's get to it. Don't forget, 4 o'clock, we're going to be right back here on If You Don't Like That. Grant and I are getting together to talk the weekend of football. And remember, the Kings, just a couple of days away. In fact, you will have your first you'll have your first chance to check out this rendition of the Kings Wednesday night. They take the floor against the Golden State Warriors at the Golden One Center, first preseason game. So we'll get into some updates from that. Orlando Robinson, as you've probably heard, test came back, confirmed he has a sprained MCL. So the Kings get thinner in a spot where they were already too thin. Unfortunately, I know he's kind of a center more than a forward, but the Kings were looking at that position, and actually we'll talk about it when we get to the scrimmage, but Jaden McDaniels looked pretty good. Excuse me. So we'll talk about that and get to everything else. But first, some breaking news. Our man, I talk about him all the time here on the show. He was supposed to join us this summer. He still may join us. He's a busy guy, and you understand why he didn't have time to come on. Gabriel Harris, who was acting as the interim GM of the Stockton Kings, has officially been named GM of the Stockton Kings. Congrats to Gabriel. I've had some great conversations with him down in Stockton, and he is doing good things, not just in that front office, but also with the scouting. So really happy for him and Coach Crawford. If you didn't know, Quentin Crawford, the new head coach of the Stockton Kings. That was announced about a month ago, I want to say. So you've got a couple of young guys at the front of that organization. I really like it. Let's see if they can continue with the player development. The player development is the key to this entire thing that the Kings are building right now. De'Aaron Fox kind of hit on it after practice, talking about the West and then talking about the veterans on this team, yet the veterans on the team right now are still young. You're talking about guys that are 25, 26. That's young in the NBA. So congratulations to both of them. Can't wait to see what goes down in Stockton this season. Yeah. I don't know. And Nia has changed her style. Adam, she's completely changed her style. She's lost some weight. She looks great, but I don't know you want anybody her size doing that move for either worker. Look at this. Wrestling taking over a Monday where we've got scrimmage action from the Kings. We've got NFL football. How about the Niners? Niner fan, are you panicking? You shouldn't. Did you see what happened in Seattle? Yeah, I told you. I told everybody on Friday when Haunted Horse was here that the Niners or the Seahawks would lose to the Giants, and they did in Seattle. So Niner fan, don't worry yet. Kyle Shanahan shouldn't get fired. Don't trade Debo. Just relax. It is a long season. You guys are still going to win 10 games. I think you pull this thing back together, but it starts on a short week Thursday with Seattle. So probably that's going to be more of a 4 o'clock thing with Grant. We'll get into it then. The best thing, though, before we get to training camp that I saw all weekend came from this. It was the college game day in Berkeley. Did anybody check that out? I know Corn Dog is lurking somewhere. Maybe he's still asleep. He took a nap in the quad because people were lining up at 10 p.m. the night before to get a spot in Berkeley. And Berkeley, the fans, they did not disappoint. They freaking brought it. They had some amazing signs. Like there was one that said, I do lines of code. Of code? Come on. Great stuff. The atmosphere was awesome. And did anybody see Daniel? He is, I believe he said he was a sophomore or a junior at Cal Berkeley. He steps up to Pat McAfee's field goal wearing the Vans slip-ons. P.S. Vans. Anybody from Vans listening to this, you need to go hop on that bandwagon. You guys got a lot of free press there, and you need to do something with Daniel because that was pretty damn amazing. If you didn't see it, Daniel literally made the 33. They call it a 40-yard field goal. It's more like a 33. He made a 33-yard field goal and won $100,000. He had been up all night, and you could see it kind of building slowly. Like, he had a quiet confidence about him. And they asked him, have you ever kicked a ball? Well, I've kicked a soccer ball. Okay. You ever kicked a football? No, but probably the same concept. This dude, his first attempt goes wide right and maybe a little short. The second one was right down the damn middle. It was incredible to watch. I loved seeing it. $100,000. What are you doing with $100,000? If you are in college, I would love to hear from Corn Dog to see what that atmosphere was like. Adam hopping in. Let's see. Vanderbilt fans carrying the goalpost 3 miles to dump it in the river was awesome. It was a crazy weekend in college football. Yes, Alabama loses. Vanderbilt, the fans. I don't get it. Why do we destroy things when things go our way? As college kids, as fans, I remember hearing stories about students at UCSB throwing flaming couches off the cliffs of IV, yada, yada, yada. It's nuts why we do that stuff, but I guess it's part of college football. I'm glad that the college football stadiums have caught up to the times and have collapsible goalposts now, but my goodness, they were tracking that thing, Adam. They were tracking it all the way down. It was like a slow speed chase. Because it's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see why carrying a goalpost is fun or lighting something on fire is fun, but to each their own. And that's from a guy that went away to college. I get it. You know, the second best thing I saw this weekend was last night. Did you guys see E. Landon for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Did you see what this guy did? E. Landon Roberts? He launched himself like a damn missile from inside the end zone, and he ended up causing the fumble. It was a once in a lifetime play. You will never see a defensive play like that probably again in your lifetime that is timed that perfectly, where you literally get over everybody on the line. He must have flown 4 yards. Anybody disagree with me there? And causes the fumble. The Steelers could not get on it, though. Dallas ultimately wins the game. But anyways, football probably more at 4 o'clock with Grant and I, so we'll get into that a little bit more. If you want to talk about it, call the show. The link is in the chat. You also have the QR code there. But let's talk Kings. That is what we are here for. The Kings scrimmaged on Saturday, had Sunday off, and today they are back on the practice court, just wrapping up practice as we speak. Probably going to have audio from that later tonight or first thing in the morning. If you want to tune in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we'll get that uploaded for you. But Saturday was pretty much a scrimmage day. They broke the teams up, or broke the Kings up into a couple of different teams. And by this time in camp, and I know it's still relatively early, and actually, if you want to look at it realistically, training camp is now over. Last week was training camp. Now this is the preseason. You have a game on Wednesday against the Warriors. You start preparing for that. You turn back around. You're in San Francisco 2 nights later playing the Warriors again. So this is the preseason now. So they had their scrimmage of training camp. They mixed up the rosters. They mixed up the teams in the second half, which was good. Mike Brown saw a lot of good things from some different guys, some of the young guys. But towards the end of the scrimmage, Mason Jones turned the ball over twice. And Mike Brown was not happy about it. In fact, Mike Brown was a little surprised that cameras were rolling. I'm going to play this, see how much you can pick up on it, and I will clarify it for you in a second. But this was Coach Brown addressing the team at the end of the scrimmage.
That cannot happen. And you need to say something from your mouth. You need to open your mouth and say something to your team, because that shit cannot happen at all. That's losing basketball. Okay? Other than that, but we have to make sure every spot in play is precious to us. And we can have a good day, but two plays like that to end the game can cost you a motherfucking series. Because now the momentum flip, and they feel good about themselves. So let's make sure we take every fucking play that we on the floor, we do this shit the right way. You feel me?
Thank you, MC. Appreciate you too, buddy. Happy you're here. Do me a favor, give us a thumbs up if you're watching. I see 85 have checked in so far. I know most people watch on X, only a few watch on YouTube, but a thumbs up, a retweet, a like, really appreciate it. Gets us in the algorithm. Does not get you signed up for anything. We won't pop up more. Just helps the show out as we head into the season. So appreciate that, MC. Hey, I'm not going to argue with Coach Brown. He was spot on in what he said. Whether you agree with the cussing or not, it's part of sports. I'm sorry. It's part of sports. In fact, he'll say something about it here in a minute, but he went over to Wes Wilcox, assistant GM, and was like, you think the media heard me on that one? Well, coach, it's a basketball gym. Of course the media heard you. But to the bigger point, I point to the Pelicans game last season, the play-in game. There were two plays by De'Aaron Fox at the end of the third quarter. There was a bad turnover, and then there was a bad shot by De'Aaron, and he didn't get back on one of them, and the Pelicans extended the lead on both of those. In the scrimmage, Mason Jones had a couple of similar plays, and Mason's had a pretty damn good camp. In fact, Mason had a very good day in that scrimmage. It just didn't end the way that Coach wanted it. And those two plays, as Coach said, can change a game. They can change a series. They absolutely can. In a Western Conference that we went over Friday, that really there's no separation outside of two teams. And if you want to throw the Mavericks in there, we can say three. There's three teams at the top of the conference. You've got obviously the Thunder, definitely the Timberwolves, and the Mavericks, possibly. I'm on the fringe still with the Mavericks. Again, go check out Friday's episode if you want my take on that. But after that, how's this West going to shake out? The West is getting older. It's going to be a grind. The West is still top to bottom, probably better than the East. Now, that might not be true once we get to the All-Star break, because some of the Eastern Conference teams that were near the middle of the pack have made a lot of roster additions, a lot of improvements, and I want to pay attention to what they do. But what was the big gripe also a lot of last year? It was basketball IQ. Sometimes the Kings were stagnant. Coach Brown likes to talk about the offense, always constant movement, hard cuts. Well, the reality is too many times last year, we saw the Kings standing around staring at the person with the ball. So Coach Brown getting on the guys in this way, totally good. You need to have accountability. And the guys he's pointing at, Domantas Sabonis, he's pointing at Foxy, he's pointing at DeMar. You got to coach those guys up. And I don't expect any of those three players to stop the scrimmage and coach Mason up, but it is a good learning point. It was a good, I would think it was a good experience overall for those guys to have. And for Mason, he's a young guy. He has the last year for Mason Jones, and he's talked about this openly, has been a roller coaster. He went from overseas to the G League. Now he's transformed his body, and he's in training camp with the Kings, likely competing for a possible look at getting minutes as this season starts because of the situation at backup point guard. So here was Coach Brown after the practice explaining to the media why it's so important that guys hold each other accountable, just like Malik Monk has been holding Coach Brown accountable in practice. We covered that the other day as well. Here's Coach Brown.
Try not to talk too loud. I was controlling myself. I was back there with Wes. I said, Wes, do you think they heard me? He said, I don't know. You did pretty good. I said, I was trying to do a good job. The scrimmage was good. And you know, I'm going to pick on Mason. Mason had a great day. He had a really, really good day. And his energy was at a high level. He was very, very talkative throughout the course of the day. Did some great things offensively, some great things defensively. And basically the last two possessions of the scrimmage, he turns the ball over and stops playing, when Keegan steals it, and then he turns it over in the backcourt, and he keeps running this way and stops playing. And I basically said, hey, in a nutshell, that can cost you a series. Somebody gets too quick, bang, bang. Now they're feeling good about themselves. Maybe you blow them out by 15 or by 10. Now it's maybe a 4-point game because they hit 2 threes. And so they're like, no, we can beat these guys. Or maybe they win the game because of it. And next thing you know, the series changes, the momentum changes. And we want to pay attention to all the details all the time. And then you're going back to the climbing together. If you're climbing a mountain and you let a couple of small details or what you think are small details go, like not getting back or not clipping into a carabiner. I hope I'm saying that right, Ed. That could be drastic. Somebody could die. And it's not that, but it could be a huge swing for us if we don't continue to focus on the details every single possession, not 99% of the time, because it's not good enough. 100% of the time, focus on the details, because there's going to be a lot of chaos as is already that we're going to miss out on. So things that we can control, let's control it. And then, I got on Foxy and Domas and DeMar a little bit because those 3 guys can't let that slide. I shouldn't have to be the one saying that. We all got to hold each other accountable like Malik holds me accountable. We all got to hold each other accountable all the time. And if our vets see something like that from a young guy in Mason, then you got to let him know, hey, Mason, you had a good day, but we can't finish that way.
On the flip side.
And they can't finish that way. I think that's the important part of the conversation. All too many times last year, that's what happened. Think about the Phoenix game at home. The Kings completely fell apart and finished that way. The Pelicans game, the play-in, that third quarter that I'm talking about, they finished that way. They were done from that point on. Now, another big thing that has been the talk of training camp has been spacing with DeMar DeRozan. What is the offense going to look like? Are we worried about the spacing? I gave that about 30 seconds of consideration and then let it go, because if the Kings are going to be playing the way that Coach Brown wants them to play, spacing is not going to be an issue. There's going to be constant motion. The reality is it's going to land somewhere in between those two things. There are going to be possessions, depending on situations, depending on matchups, when the Kings are going to go into a little bit of ISO. If teams throw zone at the Kings, that changes the scheme that you are running offensively. But looking at this whole focus of spacing, Coach Brown broke it down to a couple of really good things. And we talked about Domantas Sabonis and what he needed to work on over the summer. And the guy is amazing. Domas does it all. We know that. But if there's a couple of things that he can improve at, I think it's confidence with his offensive game. You have to be more confident with stepping into a jump shot. Doesn't mean you have to make it all the time. Just step into it with confidence, because it forces the defense to have to guard you. It changes the way they defend you. Same thing with his decision-making at times. At points last season, Domas would sometimes get to spots instead of playing where the defender was playing him. Coach Brown addressed that as well, something he's pushing Domas on this camp and then into the season. And I think it's a really good point, which will bring up another point to the DHO that we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, so, if we were, I guess, a traditional NBA team where we ISO'd a lot or attacked a lot of matchups in a stagnant situation, then maybe there's some concern there. I don't know, because we don't play that way. But because we're constantly cutting, we're constantly screening, we're constantly moving, and so when you have that type of movement, and your guys are interchangeable, it's hard to think that, okay, hey, I'm gonna sag all the way off at DeMar and let him catch, because if you sag all the way off him, by the time he catches, he may be gone, or he may be on the move, and now he's catching on the move, and so he's going to eat that space up and put you in a world of hurt. So Again, I don't see it as an issue. You know, that as well as other things could be, but the way our guys are cutting and passing and screening and understanding of our concepts when it comes to spacing that they have, which is at a pretty good level for this early.
And here's the thing. This is the wrinkle that Coach Brown's talking about. Something that Domas needs to do better, which will change the DHO, which already looks really good as it is. But here's the point that they're working on.
Just have to make sure that, especially Domas, because he's the quarterback in that situation, he continues to bring the ball lower and lower and lower down the floor and attack the defender, as opposed to DHOing it to DeMar. Because if he DHOs to DeMar, now that's an easy opportunity for the defender to slide under and meet DeMar on the other side, or beat him from point A to point B.
And that is where Domas's shot comes into. So if Domas does those two things, if he comes up and he is playing where his defender is at rather than playing the spot. What's up, Darren? Happy Monday, my man. Happy to have you in here all the way from Idaho. Darren in Cunha. Did I say it right, Darren? Cunha. Darren is actually, for those that don't know Darren, he is a little bit of a daredevil, shall I say. He does that extreme downhill mountain biking. Darren's trying to get me on one of those bikes with my two metal hips, trying to take me down black diamonds. It'll happen eventually, Darren, probably next year as I continue to get a little bit further into shape and into my rehab. So speaking of that DHO with Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan, DeMar has been very vocal about it. And it all comes down to, again, spacing, which, again, I'm not a big fan of, but the timing of it. Can Domas get to spots where the defender is at rather than certain spots on the floor? Because if he's doing those things, DeMar says it pretty damn good, and I'm going to let him say it for himself.
Can't guard it. I mean, that's what I like about it. You know, it's just have an IQ big like that, be able to screen, pass the ball, make quick decisions. You got to make a decision, you know, when I'm coming off, or if he's going to keep it, if he's going to score. It's just so many options out of that, and be able to play out of that. You know, it makes it tough for defensive players to kind of make a decision on either one of us.
You can't make a decision defensively, or you can't make the defender make a decision unless you're making the defender guard you and you're in that area. So we've talked about DeMar's passing. He talked about that a little bit after the scrimmage as well. It's something that he feels opens up things not only for his teammates, but for himself, which is super important because we've talked about Keegan Murray. We've talked about Kevin Huerter a little bit more with Kevin. Kevin getting some more of those looks that he used to get in Atlanta, was spotting up, killer spot up shooter. Now, Kevin, it's on him to make the open shot. When you are a shooting guard in the NBA, if you have an open look, you've got to knock that down most times. But Kevin in Sacramento, although he had a great 22-23 season for the most part, a lot of his looks were on the move. They were coming off of screens, sometimes off of the bounce. With DeMar DeRozan on the court, that's going to make the defenders have to come up and play him, not just his defender, but the help weak side defender, which is going to leave somebody open, presumably Keon Ellis, Kevin Huerter, or Keegan Murray. Those are the three guys. We know what Keegan has done from beyond the arc, especially his rookie year, setting the record for rookie three-pointers in a season. De'Aaron Fox has also talked about the importance of getting some spot up threes. I've seen him in camp a couple times already have more spot up threes, and he has been knocking them down. Most of De'Aaron's threes last year were off the bounce. And yes, his three-point shot was better last year, but his three-point percentage catching and shooting was higher. It was right around 43%. So De'Aaron also talked about how that two-man game between DeMar and also between Domas can open things up for other guys like himself and the guys that we talked about a second ago, Kevin Huerter, and also, sorry about that, I'm getting a message, Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray. Here you go.
with the way that he's able to just get to his spot, and then Domas being able to take guys' heads off with screens. You know, scouting reports for the most part, everybody's trying to go under on DeMar, but when you go under, you're allowing him to get closer to the basket, get closer to his spot, and just being able to get downhill. So when he's doing that and he's getting in the paint, and then you have guys, me, Keon, Keegan, Malik, Kevin, Trey, whoever's out there, you have guys that can catch and shoot the ball at a high level, and Domas rolling, it opens up the world.
It does open up the world. So the big questions with this team are not necessarily offensive. They're mostly defensive. And time will tell how that's going to play out. Again, I think the zone defense is going to play a lot into what the Kings end up doing defensively, masking those looks, giving some more pressure. But where are the Kings going to turn now? We talked about Jalen McDaniels. He had a good scrimmage. Coach Brown singled him out for his performance. Can he finally turn that corner? He has been behind a couple of very good forwards in the NBA, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. Can Jalen, SDSU guy, by the way, shout out to Jalen, or I should say part of the SDSU basketball family, but can he turn a corner? Because the Kings have an opportunity right now at that forward position for somebody to step up. De'Aaron also highlighted what Alex Len has been doing. And don't forget about Alex Len. He's kind of the unsung guy. Anytime in the last season when his feet hit that floor, he was running. And Alex has actually brought a physical brand of basketball to the court that he didn't bring his first year in Sacramento. De'Aaron is still seeing that in camp. So could Alex Len be that guy that can maybe stretch out, play a little bit smaller? Yes, I just said smaller. Go figure. Can Alex Len do it? Here's De'Aaron on it.
But as a team, you feel those types of things. And same way with Alen. Alen will come in and be like, we'll go top screen. He's looking to roll just to get you a shot and not necessarily looking for his own. So when you have guys like that, especially bigs, that makes the game so much easier, especially as a guard.
Yep. And it's all going to come down at the end of the day, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox. What is the balance with their facilitation? We haven't even talked about Malik Monk. So there's a lot of good things going on in Kings training camp. They just wrapped up. I'm starting to see some audio come in from that. We'll get to it here in a little bit. What's up, Jake? Hope you are having a great Wednesday. Monday. I said Wednesday because I looked down at my phone. And yeah. All right. Anybody ever had a garage door break? Yeah, that's what we're dealing with right now. We've got a broken garage door. Estimates coming out the wazoo to get that fixed. Wednesday estimate. Thursday, would you give me an estimate? Because I can do the podcast stuff. I can watch basketball, talk sports, tools, my hands. Not necessarily my thing, but Jake, happy to have you here on a Monday. So what's everybody want to talk about? We've got about 25 minutes left in the show. That is your update from Kings camp. Again, just wrapped up practice today. Gabriel Harris officially announced as the GM in Stockton. He was acting GM after Vivek Stoddard resigned last season, and really happy, really confident with what's going on down there. Another guy that keeps coming up, by the way, in Kings training camp is Keon Ellis. The leaps and bounds that he is making. Actually, I should say he's grown leaps in bounds defensively from what we saw last season. His basketball IQ. Can he bring a different element to that team? Kind of that garbage guy, kind of that attitude. Is that something he can bring for 82 games? DeMar DeRozan had a lot of great things to say about Keon, how he thinks that Keon is exactly what that starting lineup needs. So it's a really fun time to be a Kings fan. Again, Wednesday, you've got your first preseason game. Kings taking on the Warriors from the G1C. Don't forget, short show today, because we're going to be back at 4 o'clock talking football, talking everything Sacramento, NFL, Niners fans. How you feeling? We can talk Niners here if you want for a few minutes. Happy to do that as well. What did you see over the weekend that you want to talk about? Grant and I will be back 4 o'clock to talk about that. And also on that 4 o'clock show, do not forget, it's a rant with Grant. Yes, a rant with Grant. That means you get to choose Grant's rant for the day. And we're coming off a weekend full of rant-worthy topics. So you get to choose it. You got to be there. Put your ideas in the chat, and Grant will choose one to do his rant today at 4 o'clock. Don't forget, get down to Bennett's Westside Grill in Rockland. It's the newest location out of their 3. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. You can check out all 3 locations. In fact, as we're getting into fall, I know it is still super hot here in Sacramento, but as the temperatures start to change, we get to Thanksgiving, we get to Christmas. It's a perfect time to book one of their private dining rooms for your holiday get-togethers, your office parties, whatever it may be. Bennett's has great options for you. Prime cuts of seafood and steak. Also, incredible different specials. I talk about them all the time. The brunch, they've got weekend prime rib. Tonight, Monday, wine and dine. $66. I believe it's $66. Get you a bottle of wine and 2 entrees. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. You can confirm the price. I know it's definitely under 70. It's one of our favorite places to go, and definitely a great place to go watch the game, have a great steak, and hang out. Also, happy hour 2 to 6, sips and taste. They've got 60 different wines by the glass. Huge thanks to Bennett's Westside Grill for sponsoring the King's Court today. Grant, Rhino, we're back today at 4 o'clock. Jake hopping back in. Can't wait for the NBA season. Hopefully the Kings can win 50 games. Jake, I think it'll be a disappointing season if the Kings do not win 50 games. They've had 46 and 48 the last 2 years. The Western Conference, it's a big question mark right now. I broke down the entire Western Conference, or most of the Western Conference playoff picture, what I think will be on the playoff picture on Friday. I think 50 wins probably is going to get you the 6th seed. 50 wins probably gets you the 6. Maybe the 7. But 50 is going to have to be a number this team hits. And that's why Coach Brown did what he did at the end of the scrimmage on Saturday, Jake, talking about the 2 mistakes, the back-to-back mistakes, and letting them compound, not getting back. Stuff like that can't happen. The Western Conference is that tight. When things like that happen, you just got to keep playing. De'Aaron Fox actually had a great quote about what Coach Calipari used to tell him. Said there's no touchdowns in basketball. Get back. You can change what you just messed up with the next play. It's not like you've got to go through an entire offensive drive or defensive stand to try to get 7 points off the board. No, you can get the possession back. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was a really, really good quote by De'Aaron. And the Kings are going to have a short memory as well this season because things aren't always going to go right. James hopping in, don't really pay attention to the NBA until after the All-Star break. Fair enough. And that's why they're doing the in-season tournament. They're trying to draw up more interest, especially as football starts to come down the stretch and you finish with the baseball playoffs. But I get that. Hopefully, James, the Kings give you something to pay attention to before the break. And then don't forget, you also have the Domas, the series on Netflix, starting 5. That drops on the 9th. We're just a couple days away from that. Same day the Kings have their first preseason game. That will be exciting. Speaking of preseason action, it pains me. It really does pain me to go here, but I'm going to go here. It happened. I hope we're done with it. I hope we can move on. Yes, LeBron and Bronny were on the floor at the same time. Now, ESPN, all the other media outlets, it finally happened. They made history. Well, did they make history? It's preseason. Does preseason really count? And Bronny came in, and JJ Redick said he wanted it to be natural, the rotation. He didn't want it to be one of those gimmicky kind of things. And Bronny came in the second quarter with Dalton Connect. Yes. And Bronny didn't do a ton, but they were on the court together. I hope this thing ends and we're done with it. If LA wants to circle their wagons around Bronny and Braun being on the court at the same time, and that's going to be their season, then so be it. I sure hope the national media does not continue to focus on this. And I get it. I can hear you right now, Rhino. Why are you focusing on it? I'm acknowledging it. So they were on the court together. Bronny does not look like an NBA player. He doesn't. No disrespect to him whatsoever. Bronny needs to spend time in the G League. The G League is exactly what Bronny needs, and the G League is exactly what Bronny is exactly what the G League needs. It's not like I talk for a living. My goodness, getting tripped up on my words. What's up, Dorian? They're good for each other. It helps the G League. It helps Bronny. It's where he needs to be. Can't wait for opening night. Yes, indeed. Against the Timberwolves, the new look Timberwolves. What do you think about that trade? We talked about it last week. And Niners fans, or we want to go there really quick? Do we want to go there really quick? Yes, the Niners lost another tough one yesterday. JP Mason fumbled on basically near in the red zone, near the goal line. And the Cardinals came down, ended up getting the game-winning field goal. Now, your kicker did get hurt, so the field goals and kicking were out of question with Niners down a point on that final drive. Didn't matter. Brock Purdy turns it over. Here's the concerning stat for me. It's not just the injuries with the Niners. We've talked at length about the injuries. The concerning stat for me is the Niners traditionally defense, right? The defense is incredible. Not so much this year. The defense in the second half, they are 26th in the NFL, 26th in giving up points to their opponent. They're slowing down rather than ramping up. You've had a ton of injuries. I know Fred Warner was out there banged up, giving it a shot. 2-3 is not the end of your season. Niners fans that are calling for Kyle Shanahan's head, Niners fans that are calling for trades, stop. It is way too early for that. Look, the Niners were built, with the exception of Christian McCaffrey and a couple of the other speed guys, Debo, they're built to go through you, not around you. So they've had trouble separating. They can run through you, but they've got to get space first to get the ball unless you're handing it off and you don't know what you have from your rookie wide receivers yet. So let the chips fall where they may be. JP Mason, even though he fumbled, he's fine for this team. His numbers are incredible. If you want to look someplace and be critical of Kyle Shanahan, they ran the ball effectively for the most part yesterday. He was averaging 6 yards a carry, but the Niners only ran the ball 14 times. So difficult loss again, but Seattle also lost. So they meet Thursday night. Quick turnaround for another important divisional game. I do not know why we continue to have divisional games on Thursday nights. We got a couple of calls. Let's go to Michael first. What's up, Michael?
What's up? What you been up to, Salih?
My man, enjoying
what's that?
And grinding and enjoying training camp, getting ready for the season. How about you?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I just certainly hope that Kings do exceed expectations. They gotta work hard. That's what I saw from Mike Brown, and I think training camp. They have to go out and prove the doubters wrong. That's the goal. Goal is to make the playoffs and make it at least the second round. That's what I hope.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan Said the
You
Western
know,
Conference Finals.
maybe a championship. If that's what he said, you know, maybe a championship. Who knows?
Well, every team has a chance to win a championship at the
Yep.
start of the season, so we'll see.
Yeah. My hope is at least my expectations at least maybe through the second round of the playoffs. I mean, more realistically,
Sure.
I mean, to be honest, it would be good for Sacramento if they win. You know, win the first round playoff. It hasn't happened since 04, Weber and Vlade era.
Yep.
I mean, speaking of the NFL though, I think the Niner fans should not panic. Do not panic. We seen what back in 2021, no 2022, something like that. They were 3-4.
Yeah.
What did they do? They go 13-4. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the other thing, Michael. Look at the division. Name me one powerhouse in their division. Name me one team that's consistent. None of them are. Seattle's not consistent.
No.
The Rams aren't consistent. Arizona, not consistent. They're fine. They don't have that team that's clearly better than them in the division.
I still think the Niners will win the division. I think they will overcome it. I think, personally.
Yep, I agree with
You
you.
know, it just takes time. Sometimes, don't panic, and I think things can overcome. In NBA, look at the Kings. What were they? They were 0-4 2 years ago. What did they do? They didn't panic. Overcame it.
Yep, they've started slow the last 2 seasons. Actually,
So
they went to
Yeah.
Houston, got beat a couple times. So yeah,
Remember that. Oh, the slow start does not mean anything. What
Amen.
it means is how you do it. How do you learn your mistakes? That's the goal.
Amen. To the Niners though, really quick, and thanks for the call, Michael. I appreciate it, brother. Be well. To the Niners, really quick. I just want to say this, and we'll get to Alex, and then we'll get back to the chat. This has been a continuation of training camp. This is nothing new. This is how the entire year has gone for the Niners. I don't know why anybody thought that once the calendar turned and it became the regular season, that things were going to change. The Niners came in looking tired. The coaching staff looked tired. Before camp started, we said, look, they played deep into the season a couple of years in a row. Is there a little bit of it, even though you didn't win it, a Super Bowl hangover? You've been so close, yet so far. And then you look at the offseason, definitely didn't go as planned with Brandon Ayuk. You let that carry over, then you get Trent Williams, then you have all these injuries. And by the way, with the Christian McCaffrey situation, I get that Kyle grew up around Christian and babysitted him and all that. And I understand Christian McCaffrey is probably the best one to do it in the league, best guy carrying the ball. But when you extend somebody's contract, aren't you going to do a physical at least? Did the Niners even do that due diligence? I'm not so sure. And Damon Bruce has been the one that has been spearheading that conversation. He's been asking that question, and I think he's spot on. How do you extend that guy and not do something and make sure he is right physically? But then you get into the season and it just continues. Did you think Brandon Ayuk was going to be right in midseason shape? If CeeDee Lamb was not in camp shape and ready to go for the season, did you think Brandon Ayuk was going to be? He was injured, allegedly. So it's just been a continuation. The question is, can they get right and sustain this? Can they get some help? Can Kyle Shanahan run a balanced offense? Sometimes Kyle cannot deal with a lead and certainly cannot keep the offense balanced. Yesterday, to me, is an example of that. Can all that stuff even out? I think it can. It's so much better to start slow and finish strong than vice versa, in my opinion. Let's go to Alex. Alex, what's up, my man?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Enjoying a day off.
Love
So
it.
so to capitalize on your 49er talk, it's interesting because I'm also in agreement. I think their division there's no world beater in it. Although Arizona looks kind of decent. Kyler Murray's going to be he's doing pretty good, but I do think he's going to fall off once the new Call of Duty comes out. It just seems to be his trend. I think it's October 25th. October 25th is when it comes out, and I think that's when you're going to see a decline. Yeah, anyway, it's interesting because the 49ers, to me, they're 2-3, but they're a no panic 2-3. They're very talented. They're
Yeah.
going to get some players back. On the opposite end, my Raiders are a terrible 2-3.
They're a
You know
mess,
what
my man.
They're a terrible 2-3. Their best, offensive guys requesting a trade. There's just a lot of crazy rumors going on. Antonio Pierce might have lost the locker room. It's just crazy that.
Alex, how
Go
do
ahead,
you
go ahead, go ahead.
lose the locker room that quick? They were all rallying behind Antonio Pierce, and I get there's that honeymoon period, but it went from like, we want to play hard for this guy to kind of like pushing back against him, it seems like.
Great question. I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody. We don't need a motivational speaker. Leave that to the sports psychologist and myself. We need a head coach. You know what I mean? That's basically what it is. He's a very hoorah, whatever type guy, but anybody that watches the games, he looks sad and he has his arms crossed. He's not doing the hoorah motivational speaker method that he does. He only does that for interviews and on podcasts. He doesn't do that in games. And it's very disheartening. He doesn't make a lot of smart coaching decisions, and you kind of leave your head scratching at certain timeouts. So again, I'll reiterate: we don't need a motivational speaker. We need a real head coach.
Yeah.
Who that is, I'm not sure. But again, to your point, my Raiders are a horrible 2-3. The 49ers are don't panic. They're still very talented. There's still a lot of time 2-3. So just to add to what you were talking about. But I did want to ask you: did you watch this past weekend's UFC card?
I did not know.
You're killing me, Ryan. You're killing me.
There was too much good stuff on, Alex. I between WWE, college football, early NFL, I didn't get to it.
I hear you, but man, I brought his name up a bunch of times, but this Alex Pereira guy, he is incredible. If you do anything today else or whatever else you do, look up this past weekend's highlights of the main event. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen someone get pummeled so bad without actually getting knocked out. It was so crazy. It was intense. It was Alex Pereira against Khalil Roundtree. It was a light heavyweight championship fight. So the guy, Roundtree, the challenger, it looks like he has three eyes on one. He has an opening on top, an opening on the bottom, and of course the opening for his regular eye. It's so gnarly.
I think I saw that on social media.
Oh yeah, dude.
I saw that.
It was insane to see, but yeah, dude, check it out. And I'm gonna keep getting on you to keep watching.
I appreciate it. Stay on me, man.
Yeah, bro. But then last thing, as far as the Kings go, I'm looking forward to it. I'm still so just kind of let's watch and see, just because we're still very small, and that's the elephant in the room. We're still a very small and athletic team.
Yeah.
DeMar's gonna be good for scoring when we're in a slump, but it improves none of our weaknesses besides maybe leadership. I think it improves our leadership a little bit because he is vocal.
What do you mean it doesn't improve any of our weaknesses? Elaborate. What do you mean it doesn't improve any of the Kings' weaknesses?
So it improves our fourth quarter scoring, obviously, if you look at his stats. So, but Fox does that. He had slumps last year too, so that it does improve, and yes, his leadership too. But as far as our length, it doesn't improve any of that. As far as our defensive issues, it improves none of that. Matter of fact, it might be worse than Harrison Barnes. And then length, athleticism. He's athletic, but he's 35, and he's not, jumping out of the building either. So the main things that has plagued the Kings for all these years, even against the Pelicans per se, the length, athleticism, toughness, maybe toughness a little bit, or defense. I mean, he brings none of that. So I might be on the pessimistic side of it.
Yeah,
I'm excited he's here, but I'm also a big realist, and I've been, with this Kings team since I was a kid, as you have, and all of those real ones. And I'm just here waiting for. I was hoping we got something else that could anchor our team's weaknesses, and I don't think that's DeMar DeRozan.
So it's a fair point. I understand your point. I don't think there's anything wrong with that take, but I would challenge it in a couple spots. One of the Kings' huge weaknesses last year was they didn't have enough distributors, and they had too many finishers. Not enough guys that could create their own shots. They were guys that needed to be set up. So with DeMar DeRozan on this team, his passing completely underrated. That takes some of the responsibility, the burn off of Fox, that burden off of Sabonis. But I would also conversely say just that little tweak that we saw last year defensively with Keon Ellis when he got put into the starting lineup, and obviously because of injury, Alex, that freed Fox up. That took Fox away from the lead guard on most teams where Fox was defending the lead guard. And that let Fox play a little bit more of that center field, a little bit of free safety, and his steals went through the roof. So if the Kings can find a correct balance, especially with another guy that's creating rather than just finishing, who knows what that does offensively. It takes a little bit less attention off Fox when all in the attention in the world was on him. Same thing with Domas. But to the length, to all of the physical attributes, you're spot on. And one of the quiet things going around training camp is this team does miss Harrison Barnes for a lot of the reasons that you brought up. I mean, fans only think about Harrison missing the 3 in the playoffs. They don't think about everything else. Dude played 82 games last season. So there's something to be said about that. And it's a fair point, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Oh, yeah, of course. And I appreciate the back and forth that, it makes for a strong show and a strong conversation too, instead of us always agreeing and all that. So that's awesome. And with the Harrison Barnes thing, yes, I agree. Even me, there were some points where, he would play. Of course, he played all 82 games. He played a big portion of the game, but he'd have a bunch of zeros, 0 points, 0 rebounds, or 1 rebound. And it was driving me crazy, but he would at times play decent defense. They would put him on the 4 or the 3. And of course, he wasn't doing the scoring. That'd be more Fox or Monk or just, whoever was the hot hand that day. But like I said, I think he is he's a better defender than DeMar DeRozan. But of course, DeMar DeRozan's a better scorer. So I guess I'm at a point where I guess if we outscore everybody, it doesn't matter about defense. That I guess that's how I'm. If this is the team we're going to have without any more trades or any more acquisitions, that's my optimism going into the season. Let's just outscore everybody. Defense isn't. That's not our strength, obviously. Let's just try to outscore everybody.
I hear you, Alex. Dude, thanks for the call. Appreciate you, brother.
Have a good week, man.
Absolutely, you too. Good call by Alex. This is where what Dago says comes in. That is exactly where it comes in. Kings gotta beat the Kings this season. The reason I say that comes in is what Alex was pointing out about Harrison Barnes and the scoreless nights, the scoreless halves. That is where, and at the beginning of the show as well, I'm talking about the Kings. It's great when they are in motion, when they are in moving, making hard cuts, being intentional, then things can be good. Things can be really good. But too many times last year, we saw them being stagnant. And that is when the Kings began beating the Kings. And part of that formula as well was the fact that guys like Harrison Barnes, guys like Keegan Murray, although he's working on it and he's young and it's a progression, they are not shot creators. They are shot finishers. So when all of the pressure is on De'Aaron Fox, on Domantas Sabonis, on Malik Monk, mind you, you were dealing with injuries a large part of last season, a large part of the second half of the season. And despite the injuries, despite the losses, your net rating triples? How does that happen? It's because the Kings had better balance on the floor. They played better defense. It was a more balanced attack. The IQ went up. So the basketball IQ, the Kings got to beat the Kings. That's exactly what the IQ is. It's exactly what my concern was at the beginning of this, or at the beginning of the show. So both of those points tie in very perfectly, and it's not just on the court. It's with the coaching staff as well. Coach Brown got his extension, which I completely agree with. And Kings fans, this is the most solid base this franchise has been built on in 18 years. You've got a GM that's gotten an extension on his contract. You have a coach that had years left on his contract, or a year with an option, and got an extension. This is a base for the future. This is what Vivek sees going forward. So it's got to get done, but it also starts there. All too often, and Mike Brown said it last year, he did not call as many set plays for the guys as he did in 22-23. That has got to change. When the offense is not free flowing and guys are not cutting and moving and making intentional cuts, that's where the IQ picks up and the coach calls the damn plays. Those are the small improvements where the Kings don't beat the Kings this year. And that's why it's going to be a group effort. So it's a really interesting conversation. Really super excited for this season. Again, you're going to have Kings basketball Wednesday, first preseason game. Really quick, let's get to Flores. The toughest loss for me was Cincy. Cincy drops to 1-4. Joe Burrow, career day, and you lose. Now, I know Cincy came back from a really rough start last season, but your quarterback had a career day. And it was a divisional game. Cincy, 100% out of those teams. Steelers are going to be just fine. Let's see. Adam. Yeah. Oh, dude, I thought he really got cut. Exactly. And Alex, let's see. Bad blood on before. I know that is why they did that. Good point there. Good point by both of you. So you could also watch that UFC. In fact, Cole said UFC starting in right now. I think it was something like that. All right, Grant and I, we're going to be back in just under an hour. Went 2 minutes long. That's okay. Come back in 57 minutes. Grant and I will recap the weekend. We'll talk some more about the Kings. We've got the NFL whip around, and we get you ready for Monday Night Football. Also, don't forget, you will have a rant with Grant, meaning you get to choose Grant's rant for today. So you got to put your suggestions in the chat. You got to be here to be a part of that. He will choose one of them and give you a heck of a rant as always. Huge thanks to Bennett's for sponsoring us today here on the King's Court. Appreciate all you. 172 checked in at some point. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you don't like that, 7.2 thousand already subscribed. We thank you very much. It's where all of our content lives. And don't forget preseason. Well, maybe not preseason. You're going to get some preseason from me, but you're going to have pregame, halftime, and postgame shows. Grant, Jerry, and I. Jerry will be at halftime. Grant and I will take you the rest of the way for every game this season. That's where you will find us. And also the King's Court on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your audio. Go check it out. It's not just this live show. You get exclusive audio over there as well. Uploaded one over the weekend. That's where you're getting all your training camp updates. All right, we're going to get out. Grant and I back at 4 o'clock Pacific. Thank you to Michael. Thank you to Alex. Everybody in the chat. Make it a great one. Go Kings. Light the damn beam. See you at 4 o'clock right back here on If You Don't Like That for Grant and Ryan. So long. Court is dismissed.